And joining me now is the Speaker of the House, Republican Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana. Mr. Speaker, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Hey, Kristen, great to be with you.
It's great to have you. I want to start off by talking about the hurricane response. Obviously, it has upended life in parts of the Southeast. FEMA says that it does have enough funding for now. Different story for the Small Business Administration, which provides low-interest loans to renters, homeowners, and beyond. SBA is saying it could run out of funds within mere days, Mr. Speaker. You've said it's premature to call Congress back to get more funding, but has the possibility of leaving small business owners in a lurch changed your calculation?
Congress will not leave small business owners wanting. I am a small business owner, and I'm from a hurricane-prone state, Louisiana. We're kind of experts in this disaster recovery. The SBA loan, as you indicated, is a small interest loan that helps people bridge the gap and get back on their feet. But importantly about that program, it is a supplement to private insurance and other disaster relief funding. And so by definition and necessity, it takes a few weeks to calculate it. Now, Congress is expected to come back. We're already scheduled to come back right after the election. We're 23 days out from the election. That will coincide almost perfectly, I think, with the time for most of these applications to even begin and many of them to be processed. Now, FEMA has received thousands of applications already, and they're going through that laborious process of affirming and confirming it. But when the time is needed, we will cover the needs of small businesses. Congress is all on board. Remember, one day before Helene made landfall, we appropriated $20 billion additional dollars to FEMA so they would have the resources to address urgent needs. But I'll say this is very important to note. As of yesterday, roughly 2% of those funds had been distributed. We need the Biden-Harris administration to get about the business of distributing the funds that Congress has already set aside. That is a really important thing. People are hurting. I've been on the ground in the most affected disaster areas, Florida, North Carolina. They really need the help.
Mr. Speaker, just to be very clear, are you ruling out calling Congress back to get more funding even for the SBA?
No, Congress will do whatever is necessary to cover the needs of the people. But see, what happens after a big storm like this, the magnitude of these storms was enormous. I mean, it's on the scale almost of Katrina, which we're still recovering from 20 years later in Louisiana. I know this process well, but the states have to go and calculate and assess the need, and then they submit that to Congress. So that takes some time, especially when you have a storm this broad and this wide affecting so many people. So as soon as those numbers are submitted to Congress, we will act, and it'll be bipartisan, and we'll cover the needs.
All right, Mr. Speaker, let's move on to another big issue, abortion. You just saw in our new poll there's an historic gender gap in the election. In addition to that, the top motivating factor in this election is abortion. Donald Trump has proudly says he takes credit for overturning Roe v. Wade. He also says he would veto a national abortion ban. Let me put this to you. If you are, again, Speaker of the House, do you pledge not to hold a vote on any legislation that would ban abortion?
No, Kristen, listen, this is really important what you just did there. We watched 4 minutes, Steve Kornacki showing all the numbers that Donald Trump is surging ahead, that Kamala Harris is dropping in the polls. The only bright spot for her was abortion, and that's what Steve just said. That's good news. When abortion is your only good news in an election, we need to be talking about what people really care about. I've been traveling around the country, okay? I've done campaign events in over 224 cities in 40 states. I'll do many more this month. I'm on the road again this morning. Everywhere I go, Kristen, and I go to blue states and blue districts, swing districts, the number one concern on everybody's mind is the cost of living. Right after that is the wide open border, that the borders are Kamala Harris enabled and put together, all the catastrophe that comes from that. They're worried about the weakness on the world stage that Biden and Harris have projected, which has gotten us into the most dangerous situation since World War II. That's what matters to people. That's why Trump is surging in the polls, and that's why we are going to win this election, the White House, the Senate, and the House.
But, Mr. Speaker, just to the substance of my question, I understand there are other big issues, but on this big issue, which is critical to a lot of voters as well, do you pledge, if you are in fact Speaker of the House again, not to bring any legislation up for a vote that would ban abortion at the federal level?
We're nowhere in a universe where that would be possible right now. The next commander-in-chief, Donald J. Trump, has said this is an issue in the states right now. That is exactly what the situation is.
But he said he would veto. He said he would veto. Yeah.
You want me to answer the question? Let me answer the question, okay? Before you can have political consensus on a divisive issue, you have to have cultural consensus. Remember, politics is downstream from culture. We don't have that right now. There's a lot of difference of opinion out there in the states, and we've got to work through all that. And those of us who are pro-life and believe that life is sacred and that everybody should have the chance to be born and to live. I mean, I'm the product of a teen pregnancy myself. This is my life story. Yeah. I believe that that's an important issue. But I've got to build a cultural life. I have to build a cultural consensus. We're nowhere near that in this country. We know that. So there's a lot of work to do. Donald Trump said this is a state's issue. He's going to be the commander-in-chief. That's the end of the story.
But, Mr. Speaker, you co-sponsored the Life at Conception Act. You are the Speaker of the House. The Life at Conception Act would have effectively banned abortion at the federal level. So I think a lot of people want to know where you stand on this, because Donald Trump has said that he would veto a national abortion ban. So can you say that you wouldn't move to try to ban abortion at the national level? I understand there's not a consensus, but would you move to ban abortion at the national level?
I couldn't do that even if I wanted to, Kristen. I have 434 colleagues. I mean, I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I believe in the sanctity of life. That's my view doesn't change. But there's no way I could bring that bill in Congress right now. We couldn't even get I don't know, it would be a very small vote right now, okay, even among Republicans. So we have a lot of work to do. The pro-life organizations and groups are out there doing what they do. We need to show that we care for women at all stages of pregnancy and all stages of life, and that's what we are. We're for families. We're for IVF. We're for the everything that allows for that, and we need to take care of these ladies who are in difficult situations with their pregnancies. That's what the states are doing very effectively. Crisis pregnancy centers and others around the country, care pregnancy centers. There's a lot of great work being done, and we need to have dialogue and conversations about this issue. But there's not a bill coming to Congress because we're nowhere near any consensus to do that.
You're saying a lot of states are doing this effectively. Some women have come forward and said their lives are at risk because of some of these laws in place at their states. Let me move on, though. We're 3 weeks from Election Day. Former President Trump continues to make false claims. Let me read you a couple of them. Venezuelan gang members have overrun an apartment complex, he says, in Aurora, Colorado. Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio, are eating cats and dogs. FEMA funds have been redirected to house migrants. Mr. Speaker, all of those claims have been debunked. If former President Trump is so confident in his policies, yes, they haven't. But if former President Trump is so confident in his policies, why not make the argument along policy lines? Why say things that have been debunked by local officials?
President Trump is making all sorts of arguments constantly. He works 24 hours a day. I saw that Kamala Harris issued her medical records. Congratulations. Donald Trump's health is on display for the entire country every hour of every day. He has more stamina and mental acumen and strength than any political figure probably in the history of the country that I can remember. He goes nonstop. So what he's talking about is the things that the American people care about. This FEMA dollars going to resettle migrants, that is a fact. I mean, that is an objective fact. What he's talking about, it's not the disaster relief fund, but it's another fund that FEMA used to resettle all the illegal aliens that they let across the open border. Kamala Harris, the border czar, was the engineer of that.
I do have to, the FEMA funds were not redirected to house migrants. That has been debunked. It's a separate fund. FEMA has said as much.
That's right.
But just to the substance, why not make the argument on the substance of the policies, Mr. Speaker?
I'm trying to do that. Let me do that. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, as its name implies, should be working on federal emergency management, not resettling illegal aliens that are violating federal law. They're sending them around the country. They're putting them on taxpayer benefits, and that has enraged the country. That is why Kamala Harris's numbers are dropping in the polls. And she just said in her own words, you saw the tape there, there is no difference between her and Joe Biden. The Biden policies, Bidenomics, all the things they champion are destroying the country, and everybody knows that, and that's why Donald Trump is elected. Republicans are going to win the Senate and the House.
Mr. Speaker, we should note that FEMA funds were actually redirected on Donald Trump's watch to deal with the migrant issue. Let me ask you, you mentioned the medical records.
No, ma'am. No, wait a minute. No, that's hold on, wait a minute. Wait, facts are important. That is a new program that started in 2020 under Joe Biden. That funding wasn't necessary under Trump's administration because we secured the border. We didn't invite illegal aliens and dangerous people into the country. That's a Biden-Harris policy, and everybody knows it.
Mr. Speaker, it did happen under Donald Trump's watch, but let me just ask you about medical records since you raised them.
No, Kristen,
should Donald
we
Trump
did not.
release
That
all
is
of his medical records?
New account.
Should Donald Trump release all of his medical records, Mr.
He has.
Speaker?
He issued the records of his physicians. Kamala Harris issued her medical records as a diversion because she's desperate because she's sinking in the polls. Donald Trump's health is on display. Everyone in America can see it. The man works nonstop. He never quits. He probably sleeps 4 hours a night. He doesn't require as much sleep as the average person. He's an unusual figure. And this is the strength that we need in a time like this. We're in the most dangerous moment since World War II. You have to have strength. You have to have a steady hand. You have to have a commander-in-chief that our allies respect and our enemies fear. They do not fear Kamala Harris. They do fear Donald Trump.
Mr. Speaker,
that's what people are going to vote on.
Just to be very clear, he hasn't released all of his medical records. He released 2 letters. Should he release the results of the cognitive test?
It's unnecessary. He's on display every minute.
So it's unnecessary. Right. You concede that he didn't release his medical records. You don't want to know things like his cholesterol level, whether he's dealing with any issue that we may not know about, if he's going to be commander-in-chief. And he also said he would release cognitive tests.
Listen to your question.
Should he release that?
The American people, Kristen, the American people don't care about the cholesterol level of Donald Trump. They care about the cost of living and the fact they cannot pay for groceries because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's policies have put them in that situation. The medical records are irrelevant. Let's talk about things that the American people care about. That's why Donald Trump is surging in the polls, because he's doing that on stages, in interviews, nonstop around the clock, and Kamala Harris has done nothing. Every time she talks, her numbers go down because she is uniquely unqualified to be the commander-in-chief at one of the most dangerous times in the history of the country.
Mr. Speaker, very quickly, let me just ask you, I'm going to be speaking with Congresswoman Liz Cheney just moments from now. She's been very outspoken, obviously an opponent of Donald Trump, as well as House Republicans. She's expressed concerns that if Trump doesn't win, that you would not certify the election results. So here and now, can you say, if Donald Trump does not win, do you commit to certifying the election results?
Kristen, I'm a constitutional law attorney. I've dedicated my life, devoted my life, and demonstrated every day that I will uphold the Constitution. We are going to do our job in Congress. A free and fair and legal election will be certified, and that is our hope and prayer across the board. Of course I'm going to follow the Constitution. I'm going to follow the law. That's my job. It's my duty. I took an oath to do that, and I will fulfill my oath.
Regardless of who wins, you'll certify the results.
Regardless. Of course, yes, if the election is free and fair and legal, and we pray and hope that it is, there's a lot of work being done to make sure that's true. I think this one's going to be so large, there'll be no question. I think Donald J. Trump is your next president, and that can't happen soon enough.
When people hear you say, if it is free and fair, does that not undermine people's confidence in the election results, Mr. Speaker?
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't, because what I'm saying there is what the Constitution provides, what the Supreme Court has affirmed time after time, what history has affirmed. Listen, Democrats have objected to slates of electors in every single election this century when a Republican president has won. Every single time.
And yet they all
the
conceded.
Out there.
And yet they've conceded. Former President Trump has yet to concede in 2020.
That's the point. No, the point is the process works. We have the peaceful transfer of power. We did in 2020. We will in 2024. Everybody can sigh and take a deep breath. Our system is going to work. We have the greatest system in the history of the world because we live in the greatest country in the world. But that last part is in jeopardy right now. This is a decisive election, and everybody knows it. And that's why we're going to have given the chance to run this country again, and we're going to turn it around. And I can't wait.
All right, Speaker Mike Johnson, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.